Hi, everyone. Welcome to this special episode of The Chorus Effect. So glad you've joined us on this Friday afternoon. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Pouya Hamidi. He's a recording engineer, a composer, a pianist, an amazing musician. And he worked on our podcast last season called Songwalks. It was a combination of spoken word, of choral music, and of Pouya's sound design that kind of knit the whole thing together. We'll put a link to Songwalks in the comments in case you missed those releases last spring. They're meant to be enjoyed as you walk through nature or through a city or through a number of different environments. And his music really brought that project to life. We're actually working with Pouya again this season, which we might give you a little sneak preview of today. And he's here to tell us about his story and his process. And we're so excited to welcome him. Hi, Pouya.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Very good, yeah. I'm very happy to be here. It's an exciting day to release a project, and yeah, thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's great to have you. So, this music that you created for our podcast, you've distilled it all down into an EP that you're releasing today. And we wanted to tell our audiences that they can enjoy this music all by itself. Tell us a little bit about your process for writing the music for Songwalks and how it all came about.
Yeah, so it was a really interesting process because it's the first time that I'm writing for a podcast. So it was a little hybrid combination of writing for. I've done a few film scores in the past, so it was kind of like writing for film, but not really because it's all sound. But also it's a little bit like writing an album or music for just pure enjoyment. So that was really like the combination of the two. And so how it worked is I was working with a great person, Denise Ball, directly. She's a fantastic producer and just lover of music and sound. So she was putting like each episode together, and she would send me a script, and I would look at the script and get inspiration, just like how it is in film. You get a film script and you look at the parts and you want to evoke those emotions. And the episodes, if you haven't checked them out, they're full of beautiful poetry and music, and that was a big source of inspiration. So I would listen to the music in each one and also the theme. So each episode was based on a theme. For example, walking in nature or walking at dusk. So I would imagine just going for walks during those times and how I would feel. And as a composer, for me, it's walking is a huge source of inspiration because I don't know, when you walk, it's kind of a passive activity. Then you can think about melodies and ideas. So funny enough, I would just walk around my studio, my room, and just trying to come up with a melody that would go with the pacing of walking. So
Oh, that's
then,
awesome. I
yeah.
hadn't heard that before because I think walking also for creative people, there's creative people throughout history that have walked in order to let things percolate. Composers, writers, scientists, people who need the connections to kind of form in their brain. And something about walking just gets your heart rate up to that exact right level or gets things firing. I find at least. So it's funny that you walked around your studio.
Yeah, and just trying to get the right tempo for like
Yeah.
everybody else who's going to listen to the podcast. And yeah, and the first 2 days I couldn't come up with anything that I liked, so I was just working at it, and finally there was a spark, and the melody that you hear just came, and I then the whole rest of the episode is based on that. So it was a good starting point from there. So
It is so beautiful and it does evoke walking. Like as soon as you hear it's the underlying rhythm, I think, that makes it feel like walking. The dee 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 da 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 da. It just makes you want to go for a walk. I think it's so beautiful.
Thank you so
And
much.
so let's just take a step back for a second from that project in particular and tell us about yourself, your journey. How did you come to be a composer? How did you come to be in Canada? And what led you to where you are now?
Oh, yeah. I started playing the piano when I was maybe 8 years old, something like that. I have an older sibling, my brother, quite older, like 7 years. So he would sit at the piano and play, and I would be fascinated by the sounds. And actually, throughout the years, he was a big source of inspiration. He would always bring interesting music to our home, all kinds of genres. Classical was a big source. We had these cassettes. And in Iran, some music was allowed, some music was not allowed. So we would get all these special underground music that was so special that we would hear. And I would just play with the music, like on the piano, and just try to follow the chords. And it's funny, when I started playing the piano, I did not like practicing. I hated practicing. So I would just doodle around and I would find all these patterns on the piano. So kind of composing started from the beginning. And so then I came to Canada when I was 12 years old. And with my family, we immigrated to Canada from Iran. And then I went to the conservatory and had some private composition and piano lessons there. And then after that, I went to University of Toronto and studied piano and composition as well there for 4 years. And then after that, I did film composition during that time and had different bands and ensembles. And actually, one of the ensembles to this day is from that time that we are still active, called Larom Ensemble, that we play together.
Yes, I love the music of that ensemble. I've done a lot of listening to your work, and it really is beautiful. It marries, correct me if I'm wrong, what my perception is that it marries classical music in the Western tradition with some Persian tradition, other traditions. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. It's different backgrounds of the members who were in the group. It started with a Serbian accordionist and myself from Iran and piano at the University of Toronto. And we just put 4 odd kind of combination of instruments: accordion, piano, cello, and percussion. And I think it's a very Canadian group because we are just from all over the world, all over like Canada, and we just play and we just bring our own voice, Persian background, our own musical languages. So it's a very it really happened because we were in Toronto, and all these people come and from all over the world. So yeah, that's what's happening, and I'm grateful that it still is going on after all these years. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. I didn't realize it had roots back in your university days. But you really do sense that it is each person's authentic voice that comes together and creates something new by combination without compromise. You know, it's a synergy, or it's something that's greater than the sum of its parts. So I really encourage our listeners to go and check out Larom Ensemble. Maybe we could put a link to that in the chat as well. We'll try to do that. I find that there's a parallel between that kind of philosophy and choral singing, because when we come to a choir rehearsal, at least my approach as a conductor is to try to bring everybody's full voice without compromise. You know, we talk about this notion of blend, but the best blend or combination and full sound comes when everybody comes with their full authentic voice, and we find a way to fuse those together in a really beautiful way, rather than everybody finding the lowest common denominator. So I think my internet flicked for a second, but
you're back.
Go on. Well, I'm back. Sorry about that. Tell us a little bit about the difference between scoring for a podcast, which you've compared to film scoring a little bit, and writing like concert music that's going to be performed in a more traditional sense.
Yeah, so the difference is, well, it's you are supposed to be, you have to be prepared that it will be cut up, and different segments are going to be used in the different places, and it's setting up something that is coming up. Like it's not its own entity; it's part of a bigger package or a bigger episode. So it's not just the whole. When I compose for a concert piece, it's its own universe and its own package, I guess. But when you're writing for a podcast, it's setting up the theme of the podcast, what's being included, and the mood of the podcast. So it's really teamwork. And I should say, without the input from you, Denise, and stuff like that, the music would not have turned out this well, because it's all about teamwork and working together. And also the episodes themselves are so beautifully put together and cut together. And yeah, so that's the difference. Really, you hand off your music to somebody else to work with, and when it works, it's a really beautiful collaboration. So
it was a beautiful collaboration, an amazing team to work with. For those of you listening who haven't heard the podcast, it does take it has some spoken word, it has poetry weaved in, it has certain elements of choral pieces that are sung by the Amadeus Choir, either from our pre-pandemic performances that we took archival recordings from, or newly recorded versions where each singer contributed their own track and we edited those together. And then Pouya's music weaves it all together. There's this walking theme. So it's really quite a complex product. And we had a producer. You were acting as composer and sound designer. We had an additional audio engineer, Doug Doctor, who was working on it. The choir themselves, our associate conductor who managed that. I who was hosting. It was a massive project, and it was so fun. And I think it wouldn't have worked without any one of those moving parts.
Exactly.
And I guess film work is probably like that too, right? Where you have a director and all kinds of people involved, and you're just contributing this one piece.
Yes, exactly. And the interesting thing about this project was, because it was each the same theme changed for each episode. So each week I had a lot of fun, because I was taking the same melody and just turning it. And I didn't know what to expect of myself as well. And I was surprising myself in a pleasant way as well. For example, one of the episodes is about urban, like walking in the city. And
I just favorite.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. And I surprised myself, because it was a busy day, and I live in downtown Toronto. We hear the sirens and all the stuff, and it just the theme, like, it was very like fast and moving, and I was really like, it just came together. I just sat down and the melody came.
It's very like techno and fun. I love that variation. It's really, really fun. And you also used some we'll call it musique concrète or something, like samples, right? Like from your environment, some bird song and some of the city sounds. Were they actually from your own window that you took those recordings?
Yeah. So the big element in this one was also the sound effects and sound design, which I worked with, and they were actually a huge source of inspiration too, because how I would do each episode is I would loop the sound effects, and I would just have that in the background and then sit at the piano and come up with something. So they were a huge starting point. But no, I did not record out of my window. There's this wonderful website called freesounds.org. And it's a free online community from all over the world. And everyone from amateurs to professionals, they put up sounds. And under the Creative Commons license, you can use the sound effects. So I would have a lot of fun, like in there, just searching for all of the different sounds that I wanted to do. And the cool thing is you could put Ontario or Toronto, or so you would get birds that are from Ontario bird sounds. And
So cool.
it's so fascinating and so cool to work with
I
that.
think
Yeah.
that website has every possible sound you could imagine. I think I remember searching one time for like sea urchin falling on rock, or sea urchin like dropped by seagull on rock, East Coast Canada or something. It's like,
Yeah.
and of course, there's something there. Yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
pretty fun. And so you talk about creating a sound world. I know it was a team effort, but I think you're being modest because you were a big part of creating the sound world for this podcast, because it wasn't like there was a film to, you weren't scoring a scene of a dramatic dialogue. When you compose concert music, you are solely responsible for creating that sound world. Would you say that it's more challenging in that way? What are the different processes that happen in your head when you're writing a piece, say for La Dame, or maybe writing a piece like you're working on for the Amadeus Choir right now?
Yeah, so you are right. It's a different thing when you're doing the podcast world with sound design. You are also combining all the sounds that come out through the speakers or your headphones. And when you're writing for a concert piece for an ensemble or for a choir, you're taking account that it's going to be live in a live environment with an audience, and the sound is made acoustically in the room by the musicians, other than instead of electronically in the speakers or in the headphones. So my sound engineer background really came into play, mixing the sound effects and also my own compositions to the right level, and also the ambient sound effects. I would massage them in a way that they would fit with the music, and you can hear that on the album and EP, how it fades in, fades out, and I would add ambiences to the music. And yeah, so but if I'm writing for a choir, then or another piece, then you have to take account the ensemble that you're writing for. For example, for La Dome, I know them for 12 years, so I know how they play, what are their musical abilities, what we can do. So when I write, I imagine the musicians and myself, and write them right for them. But if I'm writing for another ensemble, which for example the Amadeus Choir, which I'm actually really excited about as well. Yeah, you take into account that group and the characteristics of writing for a choir, the acoustic balances, like what is something really loud, something soft. You have to take into account all of those as well. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're really excited about this piece as well. We'll be announcing more formally soon, but could you tell us a little bit about what you're working on and how you're going about this new collaboration?
Yeah, so I'm also super excited for this. This is a piece that I wrote of, as a part of a bigger project about 3 years ago. And I am going to rearrange one of the movements, one of the songs. And it's based on a poetry by Banu Zan, who's a really amazing contemporary poet living in Iran, living in Toronto actually, but she's from Iran. And yeah, the poem and the project is, the song is about displacement and coming out of from where you're living like most of your life, and you're forced to leave, and all the challenges and all of the thoughts and all of the things that happens, and how you have to sometimes, even if you don't want to, have to leave an environment, leaving behind family, friends, relatives, your roots. And so yeah, this is a project that was based on that. And this song Hafiz is a beautiful poem that describes like being in the garden and opening. Hafiz is a famous Persian poet. I'm sure you know that. And yeah, and actually it's quite relevant because hearing the news from Afghanistan these days, it's like it makes me even. It's a very unfortunate and sad situation, and a lot of people in the world have to go through this at the moment. So, yeah.
Wow. How would you, or do you feel that your process of migration speaks through your music?
For sure, yeah. So when I was 12, I came to Canada. So I was in between two worlds. I had a big culture shock when I came to Canada. I didn't speak a word, but I was at the age that you adapt really fast at 12 years old. But my parents, it was very difficult to switch. They lived in Iran for 50 years, half a century, and then all of a sudden come to a new environment, find new jobs and everything. And so the music and my musical language definitely has that because I really love Persian traditional music, and like my writings subconsciously as well. You may hear in the melodies that has that mood and that vibe. So yeah, it does affect my music for sure, and also some of the pain and also joy that we have encountered over the years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, both. And they exist together, I think, without, it's not one or the other. It is both in so much of the art that we do. And I think art is one of the only things that can hold those sort of opposing feelings and sentiments, just hold them next to each other and try to sit with the conflict or the duality of that and not try to reconcile. That's where art exists, I think, in between those kinds of opposing forces.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I believe you're going to be including a Persian drum in this arrangement for the Amadeus Choir. Could you tell us a little bit about that instrument?
Yeah, so the Persian drum is it's called DAF. That I'll be featuring in this in the new arrangement that I'll be doing for the choir, and it's called DAF, and it's a hand drum, and it's quite like I think Celtic. It's similar to a Celtic drum that some people are used to in the East Coast. But you hold it with your hand and you go like this with really fast fingers, and it's fascinating to watch. Sometimes musicians play them so fast, like the DAF players, that they're like floating in the midair. They're not even coming out. And the really amazing thing about it is that it has little I guess you call them snares or chain inside the back of the drum. So when you hold it up and down and you throw it up and down, you make a really fantastic snare or chain sound to it. And traditionally, the skin is made out of animal skin. I'm not sure exactly what type of skin. I guess it varies, but that's why you have to be careful with temperatures and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a beautiful. It's one of my favorite instruments and very powerful. It can really fill a whole room and makes you want to get up and dance. So, yeah.
It also just transports you. Like you're talking about building a sound world. Like this drum, it has the frame drum kind of resonant sound, if I'm not mistaken, and also the jingly, like higher pitched from that snare element, and whatever it is about the way those two sounds interact, and then of course the way that these expert players can evoke sound from this instrument, it just makes you feel like you're in a different place instantly. It's going to be such an exciting element of this piece, I think.
For sure. Yeah, I'm super excited to write for that.
Yeah, me too. So the big announcement is coming soon, but we are going to release this piece as a film. We're going to be rehearsing it with the Amadeus Choir over the next 6 weeks or so. And our audience can expect to see a really beautiful release of Hafez by Pouya Hamidi coming out sometime this fall. We're super looking forward to working with you, actually writing for the choir and not just hearing your music on our podcast, because it's I was joking with someone earlier this morning that it's our first release of an album that has no music for choir. I think you very kindly, mentioned the Amadeus Choir in your release, and I think it's probably the first time we've commissioned music that isn't for choir. And it's just the nature of these times is that we're building new kinds of collaborations and more digital kinds of collaborations, but we're looking forward to working with you in a slightly more normal way where you write for choir and we sing it.
Yeah, slightly more. Yeah. No, it's fascinating times, and I admire what Amadeus Choir is doing throughout these challenging and also changing times. The podcast project is really interesting. Like, if I would also check it out if I wasn't involved. It's a very clever and really interesting idea, and the film that you're going to do for the new seasons and all that stuff is really interesting work, and just adapting to new times, because in a way we are forced to, and let's take advantage of it when you can.
The whole idea is just trying to find ways to make music in this time, and it pushes us to do things we wouldn't otherwise have thought to do. So we are trying to see it as an opportunity for creativity. How has your work been affected by the pandemic as a recording engineer, composer, and pianist? Have you been busy?
So at the beginning of the pandemic, I guess a year and a half ago, everything stopped, everything shut down. But then slowly it picked up, and I'm fortunate that as a sound engineer, I've been quite busy because a lot of our artists now can't do concerts, so they're doing recordings. And as a composer, I've done a few things, but as a performer, it really stopped everything. Mostly we had a lot of dates canceled, but we have done a few live streams, which have been really great. But yeah, it's been a turbulent time, and lots of cancellations, and But
I know, but at least as someone who works in the digital world and recording, that's been everybody's go-to over the last few months. We have a couple of audience questions if you have time.
Oh, great. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Let me find here. Lori Lipsky is asking. Oh, Jane. Yep, Lori is asking. Will you compose music for other choirs?
I would love to compose for other choirs. I've always found choirs to be extremely emotional, and like the idea of having just humans, lots of humans stand each other and just sing and make sound, and it's just something really human and powerful about that. So I would love to write for other choirs. So if you, Lori, if you know anyone, just ask.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. I like choirs too. And Jane has a question. I loved the rhythms in Songwalks. What was the inspiration for that?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So the rhythm came just from walking. So I just went for walks, and then I would come, sit down, play on the piano, find the tempo, then record what I played on the piano, and just go for more walks. So really, the podcast idea itself just gave me the ideas for the rhythm in there. And I always love polyrhythms and something that is kind of constant. So that really fit the idea of the podcast.
Kind of perpetual motion, like it felt cyclical. It felt almost like walking, I don't know, or even bicycling or something, like that sort of beautiful undulating feel. And I think that's all the questions, but we have a lovely compliment for you that we'll also put up on the screen. You are amazing, Pouya. Keep it up.
Oh, thank you, Maziar. Hi, Maziar. Thanks so much. Awesome.
Well, we agree. you're part of the Amadeus Choir family now, and we can't wait to work with you more this fall. Thank you so much for your time and your generous spirit and your beautiful music.
Thank you so much for having me and having me involved in the project and for supporting me with the album launch for the upcoming season. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to working together more. So
thank you,
yeah.
Pouya. If you haven't yet checked out the album, it's being released today. The soundtrack of Songwalks, music by Pouya Hamidi. The link is in the comments. Don't miss it. And we will see you all soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Pouya.
Thank you.